begin with a question from Rod McKenzie. Go ahead, Rod.
Hey, Chance, in the fall, you had a chance to get your feet wet, as a starter. How was that role for you after pitching in relief most of the year?
It was exciting. Just kind of at the end of the year last year, getting to start that game against Vanderbilt. And then in the exit interview, just DH and Coach Hall and Debo and Rammer and all them saying that they wanted me to come back and compete for that starting spot. It was nice to be able to get my feet wet in that this fall, and just kind of get to enjoy that. I was always a starter back before college. And even in my freshman year of college, I started a couple games, and then started that one last year. So it was just nice. It wasn't really anything that new to me, but it was definitely fun to just be put in that position.
Take a question from Kelly Quinlan. Go ahead, Kelly.
Chance, it seems, obviously last year was a tough year for everybody just with the way things were going on, but kind of what have you worked on to get yourself in this position to be in the weekend rotation, and kind of, I guess, what parts of your game do you feel like you've improved, to make that leap up?
Definitely strike percentage. I feel like that was kind of always been my problem with just kind of in the past as to why I would get hit as much as I did or not be able to go for as long as I would want to. Was just because I'd fall behind in counts, and then I'd have to make too good of pitches to too good of hitters. And then eventually that would just set me up for failure like that. So I would say just definitely putting the emphasis on first pitch strikes and getting ahead and staying ahead. It's definitely been probably the biggest improvement that I've made in my game from last season to now.
Take a question from Ken Segura. Go ahead, Ken.
Chase, regarding what you're saying about strike percentage and throwing first pitch strikes, I guess beyond the obvious, like how do you become better at obviously just the matter of throwing fewer balls and more strikes?
I think confidence was really one of the biggest parts. Debo implemented some, like, instead of throwing bullpens, we've been doing like facing hitters on our bullpen days, but at 80%. So on those days, I'll be 85, 87, or 87 to 89, 90. And I think just kind of really working on that and kind of working on hitting spots and still trying to attack hitters and trying to beat our offense, especially with how good we are on the hitting side. Just if I can beat some of our hitters being 87, 89, then that just gave me more confidence on the mound to be able to be like, okay, I know that if I can beat them at 87, 89, I can for sure beat them at 93, 95. And I think that just gave me more confidence, especially just as like if one day my velo's not as much there as it was one day, like let's say one day I'm 91, 93, I still don't lack that confidence because I've proved to myself that I can get these guys out throwing fastballs at 85 miles an hour. So 91, 93, like my confidence doesn't really plummet with that.
Take another question from Rod. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
That was something new to have be pitching against hitters in bullpen like that.
Yeah. We started that this past fall.
Question from Rod.
Naturally, when you were at Vanderbilt, the coaching staff and the pitchers there had good success. You come to Georgia Tech. How much of a difference was it working with Coach Burrell?
I mean, it was a good change. I really like Debo's experience and just all that he has. That was definitely a big part of what drew me here. But I mean, not really too much different. I mean, I would say Debo. I mean, not to like speak ill of Vanderbilt or anything, but I mean, I like how much time Debo really puts in and just kind of the emphasis on that. Like it's just kind of crazy how he can manage to go to each different pitcher and work with each different pitcher in like one practice. It's just crazy how he can just kind of get around and be effective in such a short amount of time with how many pitchers we have on our staff this year? 15, 16, 17. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest differences and just one of the best parts of being here.
Another question from Kelly.
What are kind of the biggest differences in terms of just how you approach things going from being in the bullpen to starting and obviously having to kind of pick and choose how to exert yourself and those types of things in terms of your pitches and pitch selection, even how much does it change coming when you know you need to pitch 4 or 5 innings?
I really haven't seen much difference in myself, and I think that was kind of a part as to why I struggled last year in the fall whenever I started getting extended to hopefully be a starter last fall, was because I'd come out for 1 to 2 innings and I'd be throwing really hard, and then as my innings started getting longer, I would already be throwing slower in the beginning of the game because I would think that I needed to like conserve my energy to be able to go 50, 60, 70 pitches. And so I think I just kind of took that into this year, and just try and go all out every inning and just kind of exert myself on every pitch. I don't really try and hold back on too much, but I mean, obviously there's some situations where you have to be more fine with the pitch. And then there's some situations where, you know, you're up in a count and you can let one loose and definitely exert a little more energy in that.
Another question from Ken.
Are there a couple hitters that you noticed have made a lot of strides from either either in the fall or starting now in the spring?
I think strides. I would say the toughest hitters that we've had to face so far this year would be Chandler Simpson and Trez Gonzalez. They just fight off pitches so well and just spoil pitches to where they set themselves up really well for a pitcher to make a mistake pretty much. I mean, you get into 5, 6, 7 pitch ABs with them, and you're bound to make a mistake on one of them, and they're generally pretty good at hitting that mistake.
Rod, go ahead.
You talked about, throwing hard from the beginning. How much does Coach Tambora work with the pitchers as far as conditioning is concerned to allow you to do that?
A lot. I mean, we trained hard in the fall and still train hard now. We're working out. I think back in the fall it was 4 or 5 days a week, and now it's 4 days a week. I mean, especially given the roles now, it might be a little less for bullpen guys and maybe a little more for starters who are kind of on a more set rotation. But I mean, everybody gets good work in every time you get in there. I mean, he definitely gets the best out of you. And then I mean, we do running and whatnot with Debo every day after we pitch or after we throw, after we play catch. Then Debo's got running for us to do every day, whether that's build up 80s and then some short change of direction bursts, or if it's just some short sprints and whatnot. So I think that's definitely helped in the conditioning.
Question from Ken.
As a staff, are there any things in particular that you guys want to be better at? Like, obviously, I'm sure you, as a staff, had more walks than you wanted, extra base hits, that sort of thing. Is there anything particular that you, as a group, that you want to?
So we had a pitcher meeting. I think it was either towards the end of the fall or whenever we came back for preseason. I think it was in the fall, and we kind of talked about what we wanted our goals to be. And I think we pretty much, I mean, our pitching categories last year were all pretty low. So we had a lot of improvements to make, but I think kind of the biggest emphasis was on first pitch strikes. That was definitely one of the biggest emphasis. So like for the fall and for this preseason.
Anything else for Chance? All right. Thank you very much.
All right. I appreciate it, guys.
Get the questions for Colin. We'll start with Rod. Go ahead, Rod. Rod, you are muted.
Colin, can you run us through what it was like for you to have to sit out the length of time that you did, and how difficult was that? And what was the toughest adjustment for you once you came back and got some at-bats at the end of last year?
Yeah, being hurt's never fun. I figured I was going to be out for most of the season, and I was fortunate enough to get back there in the regional at Vandy. And, all I could do was just be a good teammate, especially in that captain's role. Just try and be a leading figure for the younger guys and help them out, get comfortable in that situation. And honestly, I guess the hardest part was just timing coming back. At the end of the day, you're just competing. So just timing up some fastballs against those big arms on Vandy. That was probably the only adjustment, really.
Take a question from Kelly Quinlan.
you kind of talk about your role in terms of just leadership with this team and trying to kind of make a big statement this year?
Yeah, being as ancient I am on this team, I mean, probably the oldest guy by far. I've just had a lot of experience on some good teams here, and just any value I can bring and experience and knowledge to give everybody else on the team, it'll go a long way. So just try and be that leading figure and just help out everybody get comfortable for this big season.
Another question from Rod.
You've in your career, you've hit up and down the lineup. It seemed like you really enjoyed hitting near the top of the lineup. Of course, you got Chandler up there now as a possibility. How would the two of you work well together, to get things rolling at the top of the lineup?
Yeah, Chandler's unbelievable. I mean, you're probably looking at the fastest guy in college baseball, if not, one of. So I think however it shapes up, whether he's hitting first or behind me or, I'm hitting behind him, I think there's a good chance for a lot of guys behind us to hit us in. I mean, it's almost like a 90% chance one of us are getting on every inning for the team. So it'll be a big opportunity, and I'm excited to watch them, and we'll see how it all shapes up.
Question from Ken Segura.
Chance was on here before. He was telling us about goals that the pitching staff had set as a team or amongst the hitters. Are there some things that you want to make sure you accomplish as goals?
Yeah, absolutely. We finished almost top of the offensive categories in the ACC last year. So I think if we can just build upon that, and I think we're trying to break some GT offensive records this year. I know it's a big task, but I think we're trying to chase something great. So just trying to go off, as they say.
Any records in particular?
I mean, just anything offensive, really. I mean, probably not stolen bases. We've never been heavy on stolen bases in the past. But anything just hitting. I mean, we want to break doubles records, triples records. Homer's going to be a tall task to tackle, but average, OBP, you name it.
Another question from Rod.
How are things looking defensively in the outfield? I know when you came back, Trace moved over to left field. DeLeo putting in time and right along with Reed, and he seems to be making some improvements in right field. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah. All those guys have been looking great in the spring here and in the fall. I'll probably stay in center, and Tress, Jake, and Reed, they'll all move around. I know Tress will probably lock up left, and whether Steve's DHing or Jake's DHing, Jake's in right, Steve's in right. Not sure how it'll shape up yet, but I know we got a strong defense in the outfield this year, so we're looking forward to it.
Another question from Kelly.
Kind of knowing where you stand as, the older player and stuff, kind of what are your emotions like heading into this season? And obviously having so much of your year robbed last year, it has to be probably pretty exciting just to kind of gear up and play some games against someone else other than yourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of excitement. I know this is going to be it for me. So I've just kind of been soaking it all in. There's not a day I'm coming to the field that I'm happy to be out here. So I think we got a great chance to have a big year, and just being able to slow it down for myself and just soak in every last moment with these guys.
Ben?
Can you tell us about some of the freshmen and kind of who maybe caught your eye a little bit?
Yeah. On the pitching side of things, I mean, we got some really talented arms: Cam Hill, Aiden Finateri, Logan McGuire. I'm sure you can expect to see Aiden throwing a lot, whether it's during a midweek or maybe even a starting role on the weekend. We're not sure yet, or I'm not sure yet. Maybe some of the pitchers have some more details on that. But Logan McGuire, you'll see plenty of him. I think all those guys have done a great job, and they'll be able to produce big for us. And then offensively, you got Jet Lovett and Bradley Fry. Those two guys have stuck out a lot to me. Bradley Fry is great defensively, and seems like he's always getting on base, getting hits. And Jet's kind of the same way. He can pretty much play everywhere, outfield, infield, and he can just swing it from the left side. He's been fun to watch.
Anything else for Colin? All right. Thank you very much, Colin.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Colin.
Appreciate it, Colin.
Coach, if you could, maybe just start us off with some quick thoughts on the preseason in the fall and kind of catch us up, and then we'll go to questions from the group.
Good to see everybody today. I think, we're all looking forward to playing next Friday, and feel like we have a good team in place. We definitely have an older group of position players, but we have quite a few pitchers returning, and we feel like we have a lot of depth on our pitching staff. And what roles guys are going to play, I think, is still a little bit to be determined, but I think we have a pretty good idea of, how we'll go the first weekend for sure. The interesting thing, I think, on our schedule is we play Wright State 3 games, but then we go to Georgia Southern, come home, play Presbyterian, and then stay at home and play Gardner Webb 3. So we have quite a few games out of the gate, which will allow us to use a lot of pitchers. And, and I think, once you start playing and see how guys react to another uniform, it gives you a lot of just information you need as a coach to make good decisions on, what pitchers are going to give us the best opportunity to win. So, I think we're all anxious to get started and play. But we do have, thankfully, another week of preparation here before we do play next Friday.
Go ahead and open it up for questions, and we'll go with Rod McKenzie to start. Go ahead, Rod.
Hey, Danny, in the couple of exhibition games you played in the fall, we had a chance to see maybe a glimpse of who you might want to look at as your weekend rotation. Who are you looking at this weekend, and what went into those decisions?
Well, I think obviously the easy answer is who gives us the best chance to win 3 games on a weekend series. And, I think I would just say Huff and Maxwell have locked down starting roles. And, so those 2 guys for sure will throw next weekend. Then you look at Rodig, who had a good fall and has thrown the ball pretty good, here in the spring. Marquise Grissom would be in that mix. And then one of our freshmen, Aiden Finateri, has thrown the ball really well here. And I think is going in one way or another will have a huge role for us, certainly, coming out of the gate. I think Dalton Smith and Josiah Siegel are 2 guys that are veterans that, have pitched significant innings for us in the past. And I think those 2 guys would definitely be candidates. And then I would probably throw another freshman, in there as well. But, I think just initially, the upperclassmen will get the first chance to start on the weekend, other than Finateri. Finateri is pushing everybody. He's thrown the ball really well.
Question from Kelly Quinlan.
I'm just kind of curious where you see Simpson fitting into the lineup with obviously some really dynamic skills, especially with the speed.
Well, I think, he's going to play shortstop. And, where he hits in the lineup, I think is probably a little bit to be determined. He does have tremendous speed. He had an outstanding fall for us. He played really well last summer. I do think there's a big difference between playing UAB schedule and playing our schedule. So how is he going to handle, just facing the pitching that we're going to face on a day in and day out? I think that's to be determined. I would just say it like this: he'll either hit first or he could hit ninth. Just being very, very straightforward about it. But he's one of the fastest players I've ever seen in our league. I tell everybody this: the only other guy I've seen that could run like him was Trey Turner, and I think he's turned out all right. So, he's a dynamic player, and as much as we like to watch him run the bases and put pressure on people, biggest thing for me is he going to play shortstop like some of the great shortstops we've had here? That's what we hope.
Question from Ken Segura. Go ahead, Ken.
Danny, Chance was talking a little bit about the importance of throwing strikes and first pitch strikes and so forth. And as far as just the pitching staff improving performance, particularly in regards to putting guys on base, how much of that is throwing first pitch strikes, and what have you seen in that regard in terms of your guys getting better in that?
Well, I think, statistics will prove, and I think that's probably what he's referring to, is that, if we look back on, took a deep dive into our pitching last year and took a deep dive into how guys threw in the fall and how they're throwing right now, when they throw a first pitch strike, whether it's foul ball or called strike, what have you, the percentage of that guy making an out goes extremely high. And the reverse is true if you throw a first pitch ball. So I think that's things that, we have taken a deep dive into, is just the analytical part of, not only the first pitch strike, but, 1-1 and 0-2 and 1-2 and 3-1, 2-0, just different counts where, we feel like we get in trouble, and then counts where we feel like if we can just, for instance, go from a 1-1 count to a 1-2 count, everything kind of tips the scales in our favor of getting that guy out. So, trying to use analytics as much as we can and use the data that we collect and then data that we look at to just impress upon our guys the importance of throwing strikes.
Question from Rod.
Hey, Danny, in the fall, John Anderson at second and Andrew at third made a case for being starters at those positions. How have they progressed since then?
They've both done well, and if we played today, that they would both start, and but both those guys continue to improve, and they need to improve, quite honestly. I would say in the fall, neither one of them was an elite defensive player. But I think they both improved, and they're going to need to continue to improve, each day and each week and each month.
Another question from Kelly.
You talked about Vinatieri and his kind of pushing everyone else on the staff. What do you like about him? What is he doing really well?
Throws a lot of strikes with 3 pitches. He has fastball, slider, and really good changeup. Throw strikes. Very competitive kid. There's been a couple at bats already where he and Kevin Parada has kind of extended him into a 10+ pitch at bat the last 2 times he's thrown. And first time he pitched against him, it ended up with probably about a 13-14 pitch at bat and a Parada double off the left field wall. The second time, it probably was another 10 to 12 pitch at bat, and it was a 3-2 Aiden Vinatieri strikeout. So, he is he's not afraid of anybody, and and he throws a lot of strikes. So that's what we like about him.
Another question from Ken.
If I can follow up on what we were mentioning before about, throwing first pitch strikes and being mindful of count. Obviously, I'm sure it goes without saying that they want to throw strikes. As you were looking at that, what was happening on the first pitch of an at bat, do you look at, was it pitch call or just not poor technique or something else? I mean, Chance mentioned not having enough confidence, but overall, did you see kind of some big picture things that you knew you wanted to address or try to?
No, I think it's as simple as, being able to get strike one, and, and then we would certainly dive into, if you want to just use Chance Huff as an example, that, what is his strike throwing percentage on fastballs? What's his strike throwing percentage on sliders, curveballs, changeups? And if it's tipping the scale one way or another, that, he throws his fastball for a strike 60% of the time, and he throws his slider for a strike 70% of the time, then maybe that slider is a good call. So, a lot of it is geared to who's pitching and what they do best. And that just goes without saying, even looking into scouting reports on and having knowledge of, this guy might be a really good fastball hitter, but if our pitcher, the pitch that he can throw for a strike the most on strike one's a fastball, we're probably going to throw a fastball.
Another question from Rod.
Couple of outfield questions, Danny. Number one, how has Colin responded to his return after missing all that time? And number two, what are things looking like in right field?
Colin is, he's ready to go. I think anytime you get hurt and you have to miss a great part of the season, I think it can get very frustrating and, and sometimes kind of shows you how much you like playing the game and miss playing the game. So, he's ready to go and anxious to finish his career here on a high note, not only individually, but I think for our team. Right field is Reed and DeLeo. Both of them are really good players and both of them will be in our lineup. And so, I think we have four really, really good outfielders and that's good for our team.
Another question from Ken.
I want to do a couple of things. One, can you kind of give an update on just Trace Candela's progress? And then two, Colin was saying, and I guess it's, it's great to hear this from his confidence that they want to go after some school records, for average or on base precision and so forth. And I'm curious, kind of how do you feel about that side of it, of your guys' ability to score runs? It sounds very promising from everything I've heard.
Yeah, I think just to talk about Tress is a really good player, just, one of our hardest workers. And, he just does things the right way day in and day out and continues to get better. Had a very good summer in Cape Cod. And, I think he's one of the, leaders on our team, one of our go-to guys we can count on. And so he's done very well. And, I think we have a good offense but I also think there's, good pitchers out there. So, to chase records, you look at our leaderboard, and that's one of the things we have in our lab here and in our cages is that we want our players to be able to look at that leaderboard and see, who's played the most games, who's knocked in the most runs and who's hit the most home runs, doubles, or who has the best ERA and who has the most saves and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of recognizable names on that board, but to sit here and say that we have guys that'll chase those, I think we do, but there's some lofty numbers on that board. And, I hope at the end of the year, we have a lot of guys chasing some of those numbers because that means we've had a really good year. But, we hit very well last year. I think we averaged 6.7 runs a game, almost 7 a game. And, so we pay attention to that. But until you start playing and, part of it is staying healthy and having, everybody healthy throughout the year. So, do I think we have a good offense? I do. But, we're going to find out, day in and day out, just how good that offense is.
Time for one or two more. We'll go with one from Kelly.
It seems like from a pitching depth perspective, this is probably, knock on wood, one of the deeper units you've had. Do you feel good about where you're at just in terms of number of healthy arms going into the season compared to maybe other seasons?
Yeah, I do. I'll knock on wood here, Kelly, but, I thought we got through the fall kind of unscathed and other than just some little nicks and knacks here in the preseason, I think we've, been unscathed and, but that's a big key is that you'd like to have everybody healthy and, and progressing. And to this point, we have, we have been able to do that. I think there's I'd just say it like this. There's 3 key upper class arms that we haven't even talked about. One is Luke Bartnicki, who I think is in the best shape of his life, and he has thrown the ball really well, and he's been, a valuable guy for us in the past. Joe Manley is, a 5th-year grad student, has pitched very well. And Sammy Crawford is a fifth-year aeronautical engineering or aerospace engineering student. So those three guys have been in a lot of battles for us. And then we have a transfer from Wake Forest, Cole McNamee, who is right-handed. So that's just four guys right there that are older, experienced, and I think all of them competitive to go with everybody that we've already talked about. So, we feel like, we can match up with a lot of people. The key of it is just throwing strikes, and then you have to play defense behind these guys.
Last question from Rod. Wrap this up.
Hey, Danny, going back to pitching, Maxwell, to the average fan, it's easy to see that he has a live arm. Where is he now as compared to where he was as a freshman?
I think he's light years ahead of where he was. I think one, he's in way better shape. He's never going to be the most svelte guy. He's just a big kid. But I think he just commands everything better. I think he can stay within himself way better, stay under control. And, he's a very competitive kid. And so, he's shown every sign that, he's ready to have a breakout year for us.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach.
Appreciate it, Danny.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Danny.